I hope you're ready for some constructing. In this video, we'll be talking about constructing geometric objects. Well, let's get ready to get into our construction zone. So there is some brain power needed here. But before we get started, let's talk about some of the actions that we talked about. This section is going to be broken up into two separate videos. The first video is going to focus on the left side of this table, starting with line segments and ending all the way through perpendicular line. The next video will be focusing on angles and hexagons. So let's get started in our construction. So we need to grab some items. So get ready for your toolbox and think about what will you need in order for your toolbox for geometric objects. Well, I have thrown some objects in here. Let's see, can you think about what needs to go inside the box? I have to put some thought into that one. Well, let's see here. Well, we have a couple of straight edges that we can use. Although this guy here looks to be very excited to jump in the toolbox, but doesn't look like this guy's going to stay straight for us each time. So we're going to pick that other straight edges ruler. We're going to put that inside our box. We're definitely going to need this pencil tool here in order to write our steps and draw them. Protractors sometimes, but we're actually going to keep that aside for another project. We do need a compass, but we want the right compass. In this case, we need our compass that has our pencil at the end of it so that way we can draw a shape. And most people do use bottle caps in order to draw circles, but we're going to use that later on in the next video with using our compass. So we got all our tools in the toolbox, so let's get started. So in these tools, if you notice I'm hiding here, we're definitely going to make sure we're using the right tools to conduct our line segment. So one, we're going to grab that compass outside of the toolbox. We're going to take that ruler outside of the toolbox. And don't forget that pencil. Got to go ahead and grab that one. So these are our main three that we're going to use to construct our line segment. So let's think about what method and what steps do we need in order to construct our line segment. Well, first, we always want to start with a point on a plane. So we're going to go ahead and grab a point and we're going to put it right there on the plane. And your plane, in this case, is going to be our whiteboard screen. So two, we want to measure the length of that point. We'll make a measurement of the length. So actually, we're going to use our tool, and this is where we're going to go to our compass. Just going to bring that dot down so that way our compass can fit here underneath our other tools. And we're going to measure a length. Now, there needs to be no particular number, but we're going to just measure a length and have that measured. So once we make that mark, we're going to mark it with an arc using that compass. So we're going to kind of swing it around, and the tool, your compass that you use by hand will swing around, and we're going to make an arc right there. And we're going to draw our line. And that way we can put a second point onto our line here. Make sure you grab it and make sure it stays straight using our straight edge there. And we can go ahead and the fourth step, put a second point right where that arc met with our line there. And always remember, although we're on the screen here, you're going to be using a tool, which is a pencil, in order to draw all of this out. So most of the time we will be using a pencil for this. So the pencil will be used to draw that point, extend that line. The compass is going to help us to mark the arc. And when the arc is measured that length, and we always want to make sure that compass stays locked so that way we keep that same measurement and we can mark our point. And there you have it. We have our line segment, and we can always take off the part after our second point. And there you have your line segment in 4 easy steps. And one thing about it, once one is done, it's very easy to replicate it once we have that compass locked. Remember I said it was locked, and if you have it, sometimes you have a tool here that actually interlocks the arms there so that way you keep and maintain that same measurement and you do not need a ruler in that situation. So in this case, we're going to see how easy it is to replicate. So again, remember we started with that point on the plane, and we're going to label this our line segment A. And we want to replicate that and name that B. So remember we started with the point, we had our line. I'm going to make sure I grab this to keep it straight. And I do not need to use a ruler for this, although that straight edge is there. We're going to see as long as that compass stays locked, I can just put it right in front of my extended line through my point, mark that, make an arc, and all I have to do is grab an endpoint, close off. So now I no longer have a rate, I have a line segment. Erase that extended part through the point, and guess what? You have just made a replicated line segment that we can now call B, and now A is congruent to B. So I know you used these symbols before, and see how they come into play when we are working with line segments. Okay, so if you did that correctly following the video, you should have line segment A, the same measurement as line segment B. That way we can say A is congruent to B using our terminology in math and symbols and using our tools. Great job, by the way. So let's move on to a bisector of a line segment. Now this will require a little bit more than 4 steps, and we are going to already start with the line segment that we've already drawn previously, but we're going to use our endpoints as A and B instead of naming that each for our line segment. So let's begin our steps. Once we are ready to do our steps, we're always going to make sure we work with a compass. In this case, we're going to drag our compass right over one of the endpoints. And want to make sure we expand it, so you're going to unlock your chamber. And you want to extend it to where it's a little bit past halfway of our line segment. From there, we're going to make an arc to mark our point. And this is where we get to swing the arc above and below. So when we swing it, here you're going to swing it, you're going to make your arc above. And I'm trying to freehand that one, so let's take that off a little bit. And let's see, freehand, we'll make an arc above it, and we're going to make the same arc below it. Now we're going to leave that same distance, but we're going to move it to our other side with it anchored on the B point instead of the A point. And I'm going to freehandly draw an arc, and you will be doing this with your compass. And I'm going to extend that arc below as well. Now I just repeated the steps I did on 2 and 3. And now we're going to use our straight edge. And I'm going to use the line tool here in the program in order to give me a straight edge. And it will be able to give me a bisector of my line segment. I'm going to move the compass tool out of the way so you can see that. And I can put my endpoint right there to know that this is my line segment. And that's how I can use that with just a compass and a straight edge, and not necessarily always have to have a ruler. So if you're following this video, you are doing great because you are very comfortable now with doing line segments and drawing line segments. So that is the end result if you did it correctly with a freehand arc. So let's keep on moving. Oh, but before we do, that was another one that actually we did not mention and actually need to draw. A bisector of a line segment can go by another name. It can go by a perpendicular bisector. Because of the way it's drawn, it automatically generates a 90-degree angle. So by making a bisector of a line segment, you're also doing a perpendicular bisegment. Kind of like a 2-for-1 deal. So now that you're eager, got your juices flowing, and you're doing great, let's jump into parallel lines. Now, this will be a few more steps that we will have to do, but we're going to start now with a point on a plane, but not on our ray that you've seen drawn here. And just make sure if you did not in the last ones, as we're going this year, we're going to ensure that we work with either line segment or rays by your arrow tips instead of points. So just make sure we're definitely change our conversation here to rays. So once we have our point out, not on our ray, we're actually going to use our straight edge and extend the line from the ray right through that point. And we want to make sure it's thick enough, and I love to have a similar color. So we are going to make sure it goes through that point, change that thickness and that color, just so we are similar there. So you'll be doing that with a straight edge as I use the toolbar here. Now, once we have that, we are now moved through step 3. We're going to take an intersection point here where our new straight line has extended through our point. So we're going to make a point there. And we're going to ensure that this is going to be a ray instead of a line segment. So we'll put those arrow tips on there. And now this is where our compass, we're going to go to that tool and grab that compass. The compass is going to go right at that intersection point, which I did not put on the intersection. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment here. All right, let's move the pointer. That's the only thing about working online. You have to move objects out of the way in order to get them through and make your adjustments there. But one thing about a paper, you have an eraser to do this. I just have to move things around. Okay. So now let's go ahead and move back to step 4. Place the compass at the intersection, swing through both rays here. So we're going to make sure our arc swings through both rays. So we're going to take our compass and we're going to draw an arc that extends through both rays. So we're going to grab that arc. Now we want to replicate this arc or this angle here up at point A. So we're going to make sure your compass stays at the same width. So hopefully you have already locked it. You're going to move this to vertex A. And we're going to make an arc there at vertex A. And it has to be that same width. So I'm going to grab that and put that arc right there through A. So that brings you down to step 6. You're going to go back to the first arc and we're going to measure this. From here to here. So I'm extending out the compass. And I want to make sure, you have to be very exact here. I want to make sure this arc is going to be the same measurement as the one above. And I'm going to label that at point B. So I'm going to make a point. And I'm going to label that point B. We've got to make sure accurately that that is at the same location in order to ensure our angles. And that's bring us down to step 7 once we mark our label at point B. And let's go ahead and label it. This is going to be B. And we can use our straight edge and draw straight through that. And again, I'm using the line tool here. And guess what? If you're doing it correctly, you now have parallel lines. And I try my best to do it on this screen, but it's a little bit different. But if you do it with your compass correctly, you will have the same angle here and here, producing parallel lines. All right, one more challenge in our construction zone. That is perpendicular lines. Similar thing, we're going to be working with rays and points. But this time, our point gets to start on the ray. And we're using that compass tool as always and just a straight edge. You do not always have to have a ruler, but it's always good to handy. But we're really using our ruler here in this video as just a straight edge. So now let's go ahead and get started with our last one on this video, perpendicular lines. So step 1 is actually already done for you. Then you're going to replicate it on your paper. So now we can jump to step 2. We're going to place the compass at point A. I'm going to swing it left, and I'm going to swing it right. So let's start here on the left side at A, and we're going to swing it through the left side. And we're going to put an arc there. Now I want to make sure we stay the same distance that we did from the left, and we do that same distance on the right. And we're going to swing right and make that arc. Now, once we are there, we're going to place our compass up here at our new point. And actually, this time, instead of swinging left and right, we're going above and below. So here, we're going to make an arc above, and we're going to make an arc below. And we're going to make sure they extend long enough so that way we can ensure that they intersect. And I am doing these freehand, So yours should look a lot better than mine using your compass tool. So our next right point, same thing, we're going to make an arc above it and below it. And once we have those two arcs above and below, that brings you down to step 5. We're going to use a straight edge now. We have to send through that point and to those two arcs. And if yours is going to be drawn correctly, you should intersect right through there and create your perpendicular line. And you ensure it's perpendicular by marking that 90-degree angle. And you can give yourself a round of applause. You have just constructed perpendicular lines. So going back for recapping from the video and always replay, you should be able to come to do line segment, bisector of a line segment. And remember, the bisector was same as the perpendicular bisector, and you wrapped up with parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So bravo, give yourself a round of applause because you are now a pro.